since our last show. It actually came out yesterday. Fat Joe he is being sued for $20 million by T.A. Dixon, a former hype man, who alleges that the rapper engaged in sex acts with minors and coerced him into, quote, more than 4,000 sexual acts to maintain his standing. This is huge in terms of a story because it's part of a string of stories. Again, we don't know the facts of the case yet. We don't know all the details. We're not saying who's right or who's wrong here, but we are saying that this is heavy. In particular, that the lawsuit says that Fat Joe, Joseph Antonio Cartagena, engaged in coercive labor exploitation, financial fraud, sexual manipulation, violent intimidation, and psychological coercion. And this was filed in U.S. District Southern Court. This is basically it looks like a Fed thing. It's a 157-page document. And just to add this last piece to it, again, his former hype man worked with him for 16 years. And according to the complaint, he had a, quote, unrivaled vantage point to observe the rapper's off-stage lifestyle and behavior. So,
and we gotta add that this is a countersuit.
Yeah,
because Fat Joe sued him first
for defamation of character back in April.
Yeah,
got you. So he says I'm a Fat Joe, and then this becomes the countersuit. This is interesting. He says that Fat Joe forced him, quote, into humiliating situations, including sex acts performed under duress and surveillance, accompanied by threats of abandonment in foreign countries if he refused compliance. And he says the number was up to 4,000. Then he adds, there's a Jane Doe involved in this, and he says he personally witnessed Fat Joe engage in sexual relations with children who were 15 and 16 years old. And he lists 3 Jane Does, including a 16-year-old Dominican girl in New York who, quote, in exchange for cash, clothing, and payment of her cell phone bill, would perform oral sex and other sexual acts on the rapper. I don't want to go through the whole thing. Y'all can find it for yourselves, but there's 2 other Jane Does, and it's been everything from paying for BBLs to food to all these other things. And this is
and again, this is a RICO, if I'm not mistaken, right?
A civil RICO, yes.
What is a civil?
What is that?
Yeah,
you gotta.
A civil RICO, well, I don't know what it is, so look it up. But my understanding is when you take the company cards and start busting shit down and using your legal businesses to pay for illegal shit.
Yeah, but that would be a not civil RICO, right? Wouldn't that be a criminal RICO?
So he's suing him for money. Civilly, you sue somebody for money. A criminal is.
We got a definition.
But it also says claims are like there's a statute of limitations on civil RICO of 4 years.
Ice, please read us the definition.
A civil RICO refers to a private lawsuit brought under the RICO Act to recover damages resulting from a pattern of racketeering activity. Essentially, it allows individuals or businesses harmed by organized criminal activity to sue those responsible for the harm, seeking financial compensation.
Yeah, so that's what I thought. So your organized criminal activity being blended with your legal business activities is, you're done.
Never heard
Civil RICO makes sense. I don't know.
It makes sense.
It makes complete sense. I don't know whether this is.
It makes sense to me, but I feel like you would have to prove the RICO part first, no?
Well, you do, but just not beyond reasonable doubt, just by a preponderance of the evidence. So in the same way,
anybody that worked for you, helped you in any type of way do some illegal shit, then, I mean, I think I learned that from the Puff case.
Puff case.
Yeah.
But that's
the standard
not civil.
The standard of proof in a criminal versus civil RICO is different. In a criminal case, the government must prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, while in a civil case, the plaintiff only needs to prove their case by a preponderance of the evidence.
Yeah, what I just said.
I mean, it's more likely than not that he's liable.
Yeah. And so in this case, this includes unjust enrichment, quantum merit, fraudulent concealment, fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and money laundering. In this lawsuit, Roc Nation is also named. And they claim that the company, which represents Fat Joe, knowingly participated in, quote, concealing, transferring, and manipulating Dixon's authorship rights and royalty interests and sought to intimidate, harass, and obstruct the hype man's legitimate claims against Fat Joe, as well as 2 other people. This is why it becomes a civil RICO. They're saying that these acts actually caused him material harm and damage. That's the argument that's being made. And that Fat Joe is running a criminal enterprise, and the other defendants are Pistol Pete Torres and Richard Rich Player Hospitre.
This feels like he had a beef over not getting some royalties for doing ad-libs, which wouldn't necessarily be guaranteed a royalty situation. And they're going back and forth about it. And he dropped the nuke.
Yeah,
Quote unquote. That's what it feels like to me. Outside looking in.
Because Fat Joe, in the original suit, Fat Joe was saying that he was trying to extort him after he refused to be demanded for ghostwriting work. Refused to be compensated for ghostwriting work.
And so that's when he went on radio. And
Fat Joe.
No,
Okay.
Dixon, and said things about Fat Joe. Specifically, he said that he enjoys high-level that he basically said he flies 16-year-old girl across state lines for sex. Fat Joe sued for slander, and then we saw this as the response. And he told Variety, which is my source right now, he said, this is the right way to fight Joe through the system. You can't fight him no other way. Joe thinks he's God. Joe thinks he's untouchable. So, again, I don't know who's right or wrong. I don't know the details, but this is bigger than I think people thought initially, because it's not just that he's saying Fat Joe did something. When you start getting into civil RICO, the other thing that civil RICO can do is, as we learned with Diddy and Cassie, it can spark a criminal investigation.
Yes.
So this could get huge.
I don't know if this was given what Homeboy thought it was given, though. Like, because you're basically admitting that you knew, if this is true, that you knew that there was sexual activity happening with underage people, and you stood by idly and did absolutely
For 16 years.
But I think it's messy.
Did you say he was afraid?
Yes.
Yeah,
He was afraid.
I think that's what he's saying.
If that's the case, he'd be more complicit.
What do you mean?
I mean that you have he played a role to cover it up. You was aware. You didn't see any issue with it at that time. If that is the case.
Well, if you was afraid,
But
then
that's what
you're
he's
gonna get
saying, is that he
immunity.
was coerced into
You'll get
it.
immunity for your testimony, and
And them niggas, excuse me, they just use that as an angle. Them niggas don't be afraid. Them niggas be willing participants. in these
allegedly.
things. Allegedly. I'm not saying him. I'm
you
just
can be
talking about.
sued for that.
Right.
Thank you very much. Allegedly, people be willing participants. And it's not until things start to come down or things start to change where they want to use these angles, which is nothing wrong with it. If he felt, I don't think in the moment Joe was aware, or he made it aware that he was uncomfortable, or I think that he was.
If it happened, because
Yeah,
we don't
if
want
it
to assume
happened,
that he did have sex with underage girls. I don't want
Yeah.
to put that on the table either.
I'm just talking about whatever, but even with the ghost writing, even whatever. At the moment, I think a lot of niggas just be there for the ride. They there for the ride until time passes and they start to realize some shit. They don't make it be known in the beginning.
Are we in a different? Is this just a different era now? I mean, is this going to be the norm from now
Yes.
on?
It's the norm.
Gonna
It's
be.
the
I mean, forever. I'm
It is
saying.
the norm.
No, it's the norm because the U.S. is the most litigious place in the entire fucking world, and it's the result of late stage capitalism. That's just a fact.
I guess hip hop seemed insulated from some of that.
How?
Because hip hop was based on not snitching.
That's
and
what I'm
certain
saying.
Other street principles, and now those are gone.
Those
Yeah, I
principles
couldn't
don't
imagine
exist
20
anymore.
years ago somebody's hype man suing. I could see suing for royalty, suing for money, but
Yeah. For sure.
this particular angle is interesting. And again, that's not the same thing as wrong with it. If Joe did what he's alleged to do, he should be held accountable. I haven't seen this level of litigiousness in hip hop ever, and I didn't know if this was just part of kind of the extension of Me Too.
Nigga, ever since 6ix9ine did what he did and came back, and
Oh, that's interesting.
people was receptive of it, like
Some
the
people
fans,
enough.
not the industry, and then niggas was hopping on records with him. It sort of put that snitcher shit like this for the new era. To me, look at Gunna. He was accused of snitching. He came back, had a #1. Was it album?
Yeah.
Like nobody looks at it the way we look at it anymore. It's not looked at it the same.
Neutral button.